As a chronic build maker in Elden Ring, my fascination with builds mostly increases as you go lower in level. Making the most out of very little, or min-maxing if you will, becomes more complex and requires more sacrifices the lower you are in the level bracket. When you start to get towards meta, however, not only can you have the hollowed 60 vigor, but enough stats in other places to have stay off me damage with come at me defenses, in addition to a huge bag of tricks. You see, meta invading to me is just as much about hard swaps and insane weapons and spells as it is about the global fight against dead level gankers. And after all my time in Elden Ring PvP, late last summer, I realized there were very few things I hadn't tried. Near the top of that list was a Strength Faith build that had enough strength to use the number of somber weapons in the game that require both substantial strength and faith investment. The stat spread of this build was inspired by Ettertime's Strength Faith build, which has more faith and less strength. What the higher strength number gives me on the build is access to a few more weapons, as well as a lot more scaling. Hybrid builds in Elden Ring are a bit touchy, especially at 125, and while I've considered bringing this up to 138, I found that because of the unique nature of this particular build, there's no need. Starting on Vagabond or Hero, you get a 1 level difference, and this stat spread gives us enough weight to carry our Colossal, enough strength to get us near the soft cap when two-handing, and enough faith to cast the best buff in the game in Black Flame Protection. We also have enough stats to use a host of powerful and memey tools. This is why a strength hybrid is so powerful in Elden Ring, because you get decent strength scaling from Sacred Infusions, two-handing your weapon gives you extreme damage depending on the way you are taking advantage of the weapon scaling. The virtual stats from two-handing are an amazing boon to an invader, and as you'll see in many of these clips, I swing through lower vigor players in 1 or 2 hits with my main weapon, which is, of course, a Colossal Sword. None other than Maliketh's Blackblade. How did I build every other build in the game before I got to this thing? It has the Colossal moveset with a Pancake R2 and massive hyper armor values, and it pumps out damage on this build. Big damage. In addition to the eye-popping 878 AR, Maliketh's Blackblade has one of the absolute best Invasion Ash of Wars in the game in Destined Death. While costing more FP and dealing less total damage than Waves of Darkness, this thing is faster, guarantees knockdown with part of its hitbox, uses less endurance, and adds both an HP reducing and a damage over time effect. Destined Death creates absolute havoc. I think that the hyper armor is infinite. Other than from status effects, I can't remember a time I've been hit out of it. Don't tell me you've never been hit by this thing. That's because you know how to roll, and you know what you're doing. The majority of host furled finger combos in the game will attack into this thing like they're rushing down a toddler that stole their favorite candy bar. It's also a super cool legendary weapon from one of the biggest badasses in the game. Other than the stats, this weapon has everything to love. And while there are a ton of fun things this build gives you access to, this weapon in itself is worth stretching your stats for. The other main weapon on the build is Siluria's Treespear, either two-handed or power stance. Siluria's Treespear's Ash of War is a pull to a build like this. It does silly overtuned damage, you can free aim it for more accurate connections, and it also has beefy hyper armor that makes point-blank trades still on the table. In general, Greatspears remain one of the best weapon classes in the game, offering great range, hyper armor, and a mix-up based moveset that can make use of every attack input available. Siluria's Treespear gets over 700 AR on this build when two-handing, which is very good for a Greatspear. But the other mode for this weapon is another discussion entirely. Powerstanced Greatspears are one of the most intriguing, difficult, and controversial setups in the game. While they were technically nerfed in patch 1.10, with no hyper armor of their own and more weapons now being able to withstand the crouch poke, it seemed that they fell a notch or two from the top of the metagame. From what I've been witnessing though, this couldn't be further from the truth. While Powerstanced Greatspears are demanding to learn, stamina intensive, tricky, and slightly compromised from their previous glory, they are still easily one of the most broken things you can do in the game. They can be difficult to use as an invader, but because of their damage and the instant deletion of a jump L1 counter hit, they still stand out in invasions. After watching some players I respect use them more in the recent patch, I've been practicing with them myself, and while I die with them plenty, I've been slowly beginning to understand the nature of the inputs, timings, and opportunities that the weapon presents. In this case, The reward of learning such a high ceiling weapon is well worth the risk. So, what's even better than being optimal in Elden Ring PvP? Being wild and crazy, of course. And aside from a few optimal setups, this build has an arsenal of memes ready and at your disposal. My favorite swap, which you'll see in several clips, is swapping to my Prelate's Charge Great Mace to Wakeup after Destined Death. Prelate's Charge is a little awkward to time and doesn't have the best damage, but you really can't get hit out of it, and it stun locks and burger flips for most excellent gravity kills and top-notch Burger King burger flip clips. Beastclaw Greathammer also gets fantastic scaling on the build. It doesn't have a lot of range, but the Ash of War can shred entire teams with its high damage calculation. This is also the only build I've made where I can use all of the faith-based colossal weapons. I've got the Cranial Vessel Candlestand, a Duelist battle axe with that sweet golden land, and of course, the beloved Envoy Greathorn. Colossals are a great addition to the build. Not because they're as good as some of the other options, but because they're a gas! A bubble, if you will. As of the recent patch, they're more viable than ever. Pick up a Colossal and get ready for a brilliant bubble blast that'll have you singing Hallelujah! My swap down from the Black Blade is Ordovis' Greatsword, a fantastic choice with its buffed hyper armor and speed after patch 1.09. With this particular stat spread, it deals stupid damage, and the Ash of War can roll catch, pancake, and delete phantoms if they want to spam through it. My other greatsword, and you gotta have a lot of greatswords on your Strength Faith build, is the Iron Greatsword, which, to repeat, has ridiculous scaling, and has huge AR with Sacred Blade. And of course, a holy meta Strength Faith build wouldn't be complete without God's Burger Flipper itself, Marika's Hammer. I'm not using this one as much because of the other options, but the Ash of War can crush a low vigor opponent. For Chasedowns, I have Sacred Blade Rapiers because of the ridiculous scaling and AR they get combined with the buff. But the real Chasedown weapon is Intimidation, my friends. It's time to get adventurous, folks. A build like this proves that you don't have to use the same stale shit. Throw away the Cross Naginatas, the Rivers of Blood, the Moon Veils, and the Gugs. There's too much depth in the game for that stuff, and reaching for a build with unique stats gives you a goofy amount of variety, which means your invasions never get stale. Let's generate more creativity and hype around build making in the game. There's a lot of incentive to try different hybrid builds, and with good justifications for many of the niche builds. If you don't want the pinch of stats at 125, go to 139 or 150. But remember, the better that you can make your build at a lower level, the more you give yourself a bit of insulation from all of the garbage that is the meta. Almost every invasion in this video was a fun group, many of them with interesting and unique setups, and almost every single one looking for a fight. So brew on, brothers and sisters and siblings, and may the cook pot be bubbling come the winter of the DLC. Enjoy this last invasion. The host was brave, the phantoms were beautiful, and I thought that I played it really well. Thanks a lot for watching. Like and subscribe for more from this build and more build videos like this one.